Good morning again. Okay, so we're continuing our readings from the Suriy-i-Haykal, the Summons of the Lord of Hosts. The Suriy-i-Haykal, the Suri of the Temple by Bahá'u'lláh, from the compilation The Summons of the Lord of Hosts, Tablets of Bahá'u'lláh. And we're on page 48, so we're just going to go ahead and continue. O ye, the dawning places of knowledge. Oh, we already read that one, sorry. Okay. Yeah, the bottom of page 49 is where we're starting. Okay, sorry about that. Say, O people, we have commanded you in our tablets to strive at the time of the promised revelation to sanctify your souls from all names and to purify them from all that hath been created in the heavens or on the earth, that therein may appear the splendors of the Sun of Truth, which shineth forth above the horizon of the will of your Lord, the Almighty, the Most Great. We have, moreover, commanded you to cleanse your hearts from every trace of the love or hate of the peoples of the world, lest aught should divert you from one course or impel you towards another. This verily is among the weightiest counsels I have vouchsafed unto you in the perspicuous book, for whoso attacheth himself to either of these shall be prevented from attaining a proper understanding of our cause. To this beareth witness every just and discerning soul. So let's go back and look at that. He says, we've commanded you in our tablets to strive at the time of the promised revelation to sanctify your souls from all names. So what that makes me think of is, it makes me think of our adherence to whatever our previous religion has been. So names such as Moses, such as Jesus, such as Buddha. He says, when the messenger of God comes into the world again, you have to detach yourself from being attached to the name. Because when the messenger of God comes back into the world, it's the same spirit. It's the same spirit that animated Moses or Jesus or Muhammad. Don't let the name of the previous manifestation blind you from recognizing the return in a new name. And he says to sanctify your souls from all names and to purify them, that therein may appear the splendors of the Sun of Truth. Again, the splendors of the new manifestation of God. Don't let old attachments blind you to the continuation of revelation. And then he goes on to say, and this is really interesting. He says, we have moreover commanded you to cleanse your hearts from every trace of the love or hate of the peoples of the world. So he says, lest aught should divert you from one course or impel you towards another. In other words, don't put your identity culturally above anybody else's, because we're all citizens of the same homeland, the world. And if we prefer this type of people over that type of people, that, he says, for whosoever attaches himself to either of these shall be prevented from attaining a proper understanding of our cause. So if we have animosity toward a people, or if we have excessive love toward a people, it's going to prevent us from recognizing the voice of God when it appears in its new attire, as it has in this day. Then he says, ye, however, have broken the covenant of God, forgotten his testament, and at last turned away from him, whose appearance had solaced the eyes of every true believer in the divine unity. Lift up the veils and coverings that obscure your vision, and consider the testimonies of the prophets and messengers, that haply ye may recognize the cause of God in these days when the promised one hath come, invested with a mighty sovereignty. Fear God, and debar yourselves not from him who is the dayspring of his signs. So let's go back and look at what he's saying here. He's saying that no matter what religion we follow, we've broken the covenant. We've forgotten the testament of God. And in doing that, we've actually turned away from those messengers of God, Jesus, Moses, and whoever else we adhere to, because we've turned away from what they told us to do. And then he says, lift up the veils and coverings that obscure your vision, and consider their testimonies. Look at what they told us to do. And maybe then, if we really take seriously what they told us, and what they told us about their return, because they all told us about the coming of another, maybe then we'll be able to recognize the cause of God in its new and resplendent attire. The promised one hath come, invested with a mighty sovereignty. We have been waiting for this day for millennia. Let's not let it pass us by. Fear God, and debar yourselves not from him who is the dayspring of his signs. So we've talked about this before, fearing God. It's having a healthy respect for the fact that God doesn't send his laws and his messengers just to play with us. We are supposed to take this seriously and then try to live according to these laws. And if we don't, we do it at our own peril, because there are repercussions for every action. So we really need to take this seriously. Then he says, this shall in truth but profit your own selves. As to your Lord, he verily can afford to dispense with all creatures. From everlasting was he alone. There was none else besides him. He it is in whose name the standard of divine unity hath been planted upon the Sinai of the visible and invisible worlds, proclaiming that there is none other God but me, the peerless, the glorious, the incomparable. So what does he mean by divine unity? What he means is that every manifestation of God, every divine messenger who hath appeared in the world to bring the teachings of God to the disparate peoples and nations of the earth is one with every other divine messenger. That religious truth is like a puzzle. Buddha brings a piece of it, brings a perspective of it. Christ brings a piece of it. He brings a perspective. Abraham and Moses, they bring a piece. They bring a perspective. White buffalo calf woman brings a piece, brings a perspective. Quetzalcoatl brings a perspective, brings a piece. Krishna brings a piece. And now in this day, the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh have brought the latest installment of God's will, if you will. And that we need to understand truth as one. We need to understand that all of these messengers are part of one great whole. They're puzzle pieces in one great puzzle. They're installments in one great, I don't want to say soap opera, but actually it is. Our life is a soap opera, is it not? Is not this world a soap opera? They're grades in one everlasting divine school. That is what divine unity means. Okay. I'm just going to pour myself a cup of tea to moisten my throat, and then we'll continue, so don't go away. Behold, however, how those who are but a creation of his will and command have turned aside from him, and have taken unto themselves a Lord and Master besides God. These truly are of the wayward. The mention of the All-Merciful hath at all times been upon their lips, and yet when he was manifested unto them through the power of truth, they warred against him. And isn't that true? Didn't that happen with every single manifestation of God? Wretched indeed shall be the plight of such as have broken the covenant of their Lord when the luminary of the world shone forth above the horizon of the will of God, the most holy, the all-knowing, the all-wise. So now he's going to say something very heavy. It was against God that they unsheathed the swords of malice and hatred, and yet they perceive it not. Methinks they remain dead and buried in the tombs of their selfish desires, though the breeze of God hath blown over all regions. They truly are wrapped in a dense and grievous veil, and oft as the verses of God are rehearsed unto them, they persist in proud disdain. It is as though they were devoid of all understanding, or had never heard the call of God, the most exalted, the all-knowing. So this has happened in every age, that those who profess to believe turned against God's messenger when he appeared. And it's happened in this day with the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh. The Bab was executed. Bahá'u'lláh lived a life of 40 years of exile and suffering due to the machinations of the enemies. And why? Because he came to bring teachings that would help the world come into the long-promised age of peace? Like the whole world has been waiting for ages? Say, alas for you! How can ye profess yourselves believers when ye deny the verses of God, the Almighty, the All-Wise? Say, O people, turn your faces unto your Lord, the All-Merciful. Beware lest ye be veiled by aught that hath been revealed in the Bayan. That was the book of the Bab. It was in truth revealed for no other purpose than to make mention of me, the all-powerful, the Most High, and had no other object than my beauty. The whole world hath been filled with my testimony, if ye be of them that judge with fairness. Thank you for joining me this morning. I will be back tomorrow.